For the debate, Sen Rice.
Mr. President, members of the Senate, I just wanted to go over a couple of things. My father did a lot of criminal work in his practice over the years as I was growing up, including criminal tax defense. Some of that was here in Idaho, and some of that was in other parts of the country. And it included meeting with attorneys that focused their entire practice on that. And I recall one in particular who made arguments about the Internal Revenue Code based on a literal reading of particular words in particular ways that the courts across the country uniformly rejected. And they uniformly rejected them because they ignored the natural meaning of other parts of the Internal Revenue Code. This was an attorney that was admitted to practice in front of virtually every circuit court of appeals in the country. We've talked a little bit today about some particular things in the Internal Revenue or in the United States Code with regard to the exchanges. And Mr. President, if I might quote from the United States Code.
That's a lot to quote from, but if you narrow it down a little bit, we'll allow it.
How about 42 U.S.C. subsection 18041, subpart C,
That's
subpart
better.
1, B,
Getting better all the time.
double I, Roman numeral 2. It reads, "The Secretary shall directly or through agreement with a not-for-profit entity establish and operate such exchange within the state." It can't possibly be such exchange if it doesn't do what the exchange if it would do if it were established by the state. That's the first point. The second point is that the exchanges are not state exchanges or federal exchanges. The United States Code in section 18031, paragraph B, specifically provides that they are American health benefit exchanges. Those are what have those functions. Unfortunately, in what sometimes happens with lawyers, we get some of us that chase rabbits down holes. And that has happened with some competent lawyers across the country in this instance. The employer penalties apply whether it's a federal created exchange or a state created exchange. They will. Ultimately, that attorney that I was talking about on the tax matters was held to be bringing frivolous arguments in federal court and was sanctioned. This argument is no better. I have a long family history and tradition of standing up for freedom. It started before the foundation of our nation. Or, well, maybe it was the basis of much of the foundation. 4 of my direct ancestors were barons who forced King John to sign the Magna Carta. 7 of them were sureties to ensure that he abided by it. I had an ancestor that served in the North Carolina provincial legislature that told King George, "Enough is enough, we're done." I value that heritage. I value freedom. My sentiments about the Affordable Care Act and its excesses are similar to those of the opponents of this exchange bill. But this exchange bill does not implement the Affordable Care Act. It doesn't. It's already will be implemented in full with or without this bill. What this bill does is it says, shall we, as a state, continue to stand between our citizens and the federal government in every way we can? Or will we open the door to the individual homes and lives of our citizens and say to the federal government, go in? That's what this bill does. That's the difference. You know, there's been much said in emails and discussions about a lack of anything that the state would be able to decide. There are a number of specific things identified in the statutes that the state would decide, including who gets to list their policies on the exchange. But one of the things that has been true for 947 years of our legal history, which dates back to William the Conqueror in England in 1066, is that it is impossible to write laws that do not have loopholes. We deal with loopholes every single session. We pass laws to close loopholes. We passed one yesterday dealing with bankruptcy to close in part a loophole. Lawyers find them. They exist all over the place in the regulations and the statute of the Affordable Care Act in ways that allow a state exchange and the states themselves to have the ability to act in ways that protect the citizens of the state. That's the truth about this bill. Those are facts. I'm not going to stand back and open the door for the federal government and tell them, go into the homes of the citizens of the state of Idaho. Do an exchange. Do whatever you will with them. Do what you will with the businesses of the state of Idaho. I will stand silent and mute and on the sidelines. Thank you.